Right now, I'd like to go to our next speaker, Ethan Sclar. Ethan is an Amazon FBA expert and power seller. Ethan has been working on the Amazon platform for a few years now, and he's really establishing a niche in the packaged food goods industry and sector. What I'd like to do is go now to the interview with Ethan. I'm really happy to introduce Ethan Sclar with us here at Converge and Create. Ethan is a serial entrepreneur, and you'll hear from him the many pursuits that he has. One of his first ones was actually opening up a pop-up closeout and surplus kiosk called Frankie's in Wyndham, his hometown. Amongst other things, Ethan's also a student at Babson College currently. He's got a new venture, though. Actually, Ethan's become an Amazon FBA expert. And we wanted to talk a little bit about that background that he had getting on the Amazon platform. So with that, Ethan, what I'd like to do is just really ask you briefly if you could describe your business. What type of business is it? What product lines and so forth do you have?
Yep, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Mike. So the gist of it is my company is a third-party seller on Amazon, and we specialize in grocery and closeout products. So the way that that works is basically I have access to many different brands in the grocery industry, and I'm able to look at those through my spreadsheets and look at the data and the past data of how those items have been selling on Amazon and make decisions on what I think we'll be able to sell in the future and what is currently selling now. So we bring those products into our warehouse, and then we actually ship them to FBA fulfillment centers. And then Amazon then takes the product and fulfills our individual orders.
So you're sourcing these products from around the country, bringing them into Maine, and then from there, Ethan, you're putting them back out, as it were, on the Amazon platform. Is that roughly correct?
Yeah, there's many hands touching the product. So yeah, we buy it from our wholesaler, and they bring it to Maine, and then we actually ship it out to New Jersey, and then Amazon takes the final step and delivers it directly to the customer.
So there's a lot of moving parts here in effect. And your company handles all of that. Are these all your employees, or do you subcontract those relationships out?
So we do all of our packing in-house. There are definitely a lot of businesses that contracted out to businesses such as 3PL type businesses and FBA prep centers. But we've been doing it all in-house and bringing all the inventory in.
How long have you been doing it at this level, Ethan? I mean, obviously, it takes a fair amount of expertise to get to where you are. Is this something you've been doing for years, or is this something more of a newer venture for you?
Yeah, so I got into it around, I'd say like a year and a half ago. And it actually stemmed in the beginning from that venture you mentioned, Frankie's. That was all like closeout and surplus goods. And during the next summer after that, I realized that a lot of those goods can be sold on Amazon and are selling on Amazon, and I can sell right with the people who are currently selling them, which was a big eye opener to me. And then that slowly stemmed into realizing you can sell grocery on Amazon, and that's the main part of our business at this point. We don't do as much of the closeouts anymore. It's mostly straight goods from grocery distributors.
And my understanding is FBA stands for Fulfilled by Amazon. So you are using that platform not only to advertise your goods, but also to fulfill it once a customer actually makes a purchase. How difficult is it to set up an FBA business?
So yeah, there's FBA and there's FBM. On an Amazon listing, there's many people selling the same product most of the time. The listings that come up with Prime usually are the ones that are being fulfilled by Amazon. And then there's also something called Fulfilled by Merchant, which is where we could bring that same product into our warehouse, and we might not send it to the warehouse, to the fulfillment center in New Jersey, but we could actually list that product and skip Amazon and send it directly to the customer. Yes.
And you do both, is that correct?
No, we're starting to look at FBM too, but currently we're just doing FBA. It's not that hard to set up in the beginning. It's more just like the first time logistical process was a bit difficult. But once you just figure out like the procedures that Amazon needs you to follow, there's a lot of them, and just following their guidelines and understanding the process of how to ship it in becomes easier and easier. So in the beginning, we were just shipping out boxes. We were shipping out boxes directly to the fulfillment centers, but now we're shipping out pallets. So just taking those next steps and just paying attention to all the guidelines that Amazon gives you and just following their shipping rules and fulfillment by Amazon can be pretty rewarding.
Now, you've been really successful on the Amazon platform. What are the other aspects that you're considering? I understand that there's also a whole subsidiary, as it were, like pay-per-click on a campaign for advertising, as an example, scouring for keyword and keyword activity as to who's buying what SKU and so forth. Are you at that level, or is that something you've always been at?
So there's two main different business models on Amazon. One's private label and one's the wholesale model. I'm definitely in the wholesale model, where I'm not doing as much advertising. I'm selling on listings that have already been built and that I can see the demand of what they've been selling on in the past. But getting into private label and branding your own product is something I definitely want to look at getting into. And that's more so where the keyword searches and the pay-per-click strategy comes in, because at that point you're taking something from scratch and you're trying to get it in front of people's faces, and you definitely need to advertise it and the keyword and study the keywords.
So right now, you've really been successful on that arbitrage of finding good deals on price point, volume, and obviously it sounds like logistics is something of an advantage that you folks have.
Yeah, right now that's what I've been spending most of my time on, and just setting up the logistical process and learning the processes. But I would definitely like to get into more of that other end in the future, potentially.
What other challenges have you had on that Amazon platform, or things that you've learned that you might be able to share to people watching?
Yeah, so I would say I met many challenges, and I'm still facing many challenges every day. But one of the main ones is probably just realizing and understanding what we call Keepa charts is the main way we look at the history of a product. And when I first started out, I wasn't even using Keepa. I was making some bad buys. Being able to look at Keepa and understand the sales ranks of the past year, and understanding when and when not to sell against Amazon on the same listing, and just really understanding those charts and the price points, and being able to make good buying decisions based off of the data provided. And then I would say another big challenge has been just learning how to deal with Amazon, because one of the downsides of this business is that we're not really our own boss. Like, Amazon controls a lot of our business, and they could tell us if we're not allowed to sell anymore. And just really learning how important it is to follow all of their rules, and learning what those rules are, as there's so many different aspects that you have to pay attention to as they want to keep their selling community pretty safe.
A lot of people here on the Amazon platform that bestseller ranking category and or customer reviews are exceedingly important. Is that not so much important when you're arbitraging a project and a product, and that's something more on the private label side? Or what's your thoughts on that, Ethan?
So one of the benefits that we have as wholesale sellers is that we can choose the products that we sell, and we can choose that based off of stuff like the rank is one of the big indicators that we look at in terms of the volume that a product is going to move. So we look at all of that stuff. We have the benefit of not having to build a product up to being a good rank, because all of that product listing is mostly done for us at the time we start selling it.
So effectively, the SKU, the SKU, or the unit identifier is already out there on the Amazon platform. And
Yes.
would that mean then when you're listing something, is it called the buyer's box that you're competing for, or is what? Could you help me and help the listeners and viewers understand that a bit?
Exactly. So say you're on Amazon right now and you're looking to buy like a toothbrush, and this toothbrush is selling for $3.99. Most likely there's about, there could be anywhere from 2 to 40 other sellers selling that same exact product. However, the one that you're going to buy is the one that has the buy box at that period of time. And the way the buy box is, the algorithm that Amazon uses to decide which seller gets the buy box at a certain time is unknown, but a lot of the factors come down to the price point is probably the most important. Like if I'm selling on the same listing and I'm selling that toothbrush for $4.99, and there's a person selling it at $3.99, the person at $3.99 is going to get the buy box at that time. So you're buying that toothbrush and you don't even see my name selling it, most likely. So if I'm doing that, I'm playing the game that I think the guy at $3.99 is going to run out of stock soon, and I'm going to get the buy box. And then a lot of some other factors with the buy box are your account health and ratings, and the amount of quantity that you have there. And
what attracted you to the platform is I sense in your voice and your expression, you like the competition, and you sort of sound like you like that game, because it sounds like there's a lot of work to be done here on looking at analytics and the analysis and also the competition. Is that what got you into this, or how would you say was your initial interest to get in this business?
I just really like the idea of being able to sell things through the internet, and just the logistical process of figuring it all out has been very rewarding. And definitely the competition is fun. I spend a lot of my time analyzing other competitors on the same listing and seeing their stock and seeing when I can buy big and when I can't, and hunting down better prices from distributors to compete that way. It's a big competition.
It sounds like you've been doing this for a while. We mentioned Frankie's, which is sort of your introduction to entrepreneurship, and that was sort of in that salvage and surplus. So it sounds like you got a little bit of your start there. And what was your experience when you first started that first venture?
That first venture was very, very educational. Not very rewarding monetarily, but very educational. I met a lot of good connections through that. And I don't know, I think just in general, it opened my eyes to, entrepreneurship in general. And it's just very, very hard. Like I did that venture with my cousin, and we had our expectations very, very high, and we were taken off that pedestal very quickly. So I don't know, I think I just had a lot of good, realizations about entrepreneurship and how it really takes a lot of effort.
What would you say was the biggest lesson or piece of advice that you might have come away with from your first venture to really help you become successful in this one? Was there sort of a watermark or a high mark there when you said, oh, now I understand how this works, and in my next thing, it's going to be a little bit different?
I just really think I learned that you don't know how something's going to go until you try it, whether for better or for worse, and just not to, and just that it's just going to take a lot of work no matter what it is, and there's no like easy route to building something successful.
What would you say in regard to entrepreneurship, Ethan? You've had the luxury really to start at a much earlier age than most people would, but what do you think is the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship? What would you sort of categorize it at or describe it as?
The trial, I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, what would you say is the thing that really just keeps you interested in that? Because clearly there are other opportunities for you professionally that you might work for someone else. But what is it about entrepreneurship that sort of gets you going and up in the morning about it?
Yeah, for me, I think it's just very fun, figuring out new ways to do things and expanding. Like, I notice with myself, I'm not enjoying entrepreneurship as much when I'm staying stagnant and just doing the same process over and over again. I'm enjoying it and finding it much more rewarding when I'm looking for different avenues to explore. So I just think the whole exploration and like the potential of building something is what drives me.
Would you do anything differently if you started another company? Have you gotten to a point where you've really identified some areas that either you might have set up differently, knowing now what you know?
I think with this business in general, I probably would have probably invested in help earlier. That was a big jump for me to start hiring people and like really understanding that like you have to invest money to make money, and just realizing that like to build something you need to put a lot of money and expenses into it, and by just looking to shave money here and shave money there probably isn't the best thing to do long term.
It's interesting. I hear that a lot from the entrepreneurs I've interviewed over the last 20 or so years of my career, Ethan. And it's a scary step, right? Because many like to do the lifestyle entrepreneurship. That, they're employing themselves. They're making a good living doing it. To scale it, though, there's only 24 hours in a day, and it sounds like you're probably working as many as anyone that I know out there. But it's limited, right? So you need to get to that next step. What mindset did you have to change in order to bring on other people and realize that you couldn't control all of the variables as you had in the past as a single entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it just took time to grow and get to a certain point. But now my mindset is like completely changed, and I'm realizing I need to be working on the business and not in the business all the time. And that realization has been pretty big for me. I'm working to try to get right now I'm working to try to get more people on the buying side helping me. And, I think once I can keep setting up processes, it's going to allow me to take the next step and grow farther.
How does that work in your business? Is that something that you have to employ people on your direct staff, or can you go through like broker or buyer brokers, as it were, people that you are either hiring on a retainer or on as much product as it were as to what you can go out and get? But do they work for you, or are they independents that you just essentially are hiring?
The way you can do it either way. I think I'm gonna go more down the route of independence. But a lot of people do it in-house with people full time.
What do you find the challenge of now that you're scaling up, and obviously you have other people reliant on you and employees that actually are looking for your direction? What kind of a pivot have you made in your own style of letting go in some of that control? Has it been easy, or is it a little bit difficult? I mean, I know as entrepreneurs, we like to be in control of our own destiny, but how's that worked out?
It's worked out good. Obviously, it was a little bit weird for the first couple of weeks, but like I said again, like it's vital. It's not very necessary for my own personal mental well-being too. I can't be worrying about everything all the time. But yeah, it's definitely. I think you just have to expect some things to go wrong. I think it's just part of the game. And hopefully you can set up processes where as little as possible go wrong. But I think that's part of business too.
Let me ask you an honest question. Is this exactly the type of business and exactly how things that you planned are going? Or did you have to make several different pivots along the way, and as you found out new information as it came along of how to compete and be successful?
Yeah, when I started this, I had no idea where it was going, and I still have no idea where it's going. I'm always looking at different opportunities. Like I said, that's what's fun for me. And I don't have any 5-year plan of where I want this to be, because I think that's foolish to make in a e-commerce industry that's changing every day. So I'm just looking for which way to go, and definitely pivoting as many times as need be.
A lot of entrepreneurs say that they're not certain about what the options or potential could be out there. And I'd really like to get your insight and share it with the audience, Ethan, is that what's come along for opportunity as you've been in the game? I mean, do you see that more opportunities now are arriving in different product lines and with different partners and potential now that you're inside the game versus before when you were outside trying to get in? What's your thought on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just getting involved in any industry has been good for me, just so I can understand the opportunities that are out there, because it's very hard to see what opportunities are about if you're not educated on that industry. Yeah, absolutely. And I think in e-commerce in general, I think it's a little bit challenging to see a true vision right now, because we are in the coronavirus period, and things are very inflated in a good way on the e-commerce industry. So I think as coronavirus settles down, there will be a little bit more clarity in terms of which avenues to go down in the e-commerce industry, because this business that I'm doing right now very well might not be as profitable or lucrative in the near future, as more and more people get into the e-commerce industry. And it's just about, if you're gonna, in my opinion, if I'm gonna be able to be successful in the e-commerce industry, it's about looking for the next thing, the next wholesale model, if wherever that is. But I think just being in the industry gives you definitely a leg up on knowing where that next play is.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about the real estate, as it were, right? So you have a piece of real estate on that platform and some real dedicated infrastructure as it relates to the product that you're working on. But I would argue, just as importantly, as you pointed out, Ethan, you now also have a template and a blueprint of how to be successful. But that's some great insight that you'd had. How has COVID impacted you one way or the other, or has it not impacted it at all?
Yeah, so I was in an industry that COVID very positively affected. I mean, I was selling grocery through FBA 6 months before COVID hit. So that, and then COVID happened and the demand went up tremendously. So COVID has definitely, I'd say, impacted the majority of e-commerce businesses very, very positively.
And I think what we see and may be happening, but I absolutely respect the fact that you're looking to make sure that the ground is not moving again, but it has changed people's buying patterns. I can even tell you, just from my own perspective, I have ordered a lot more things via Amazon FBA and Prime, certainly in the last 6 months. And I would have to say that I think the genie's been let out of the bottle and it's probably not going to go back. So you're in an incredibly good position there. What would you say your best advice, just looking back on that, and say if someone wanted to get into e-commerce, and particularly Amazon FBA, what are some of the nuggets that you came to really discover after some hard-fought battles?
I think a lot of it is just spending time doing it, and just getting into it is like, I mean, I had thought about doing Amazon FBA like 2 years before I actually started doing it. And I wish I started it 2 years ago. It was just that like first day where I had the motivation to do it, and just dive into it. So I think just step one, just get into it and sell one thing, even if you make no money on it, and just learn how the process works and just get involved that way. And then as you go down, as you get bigger and bigger, I would just say, I mean, the way I didn't have anybody specifically who who helped me do it. I learned mostly from videos on YouTube, but there are so many resources out there from many legitimate people really genuinely trying to help, that are very helpful in building it.
Yeah, and actually through this event, Converge and Create, we're going to provide all of those listed resources for people on our website, and also at the end of this entire event, we'll talk about that and put that up there, because it's so important. And I think even what's so interesting to me is that there isn't necessarily a rule book of how to do this, but you took the risk, as it were, and you stepped off the curb, and you got involved in it. And I think I hear that from a lot of entrepreneurs, that it's just getting in the game, being comfortable with the unknown and sort of the ambiguous, and sort of roll with the punches and see where you can actually provide value.
Yeah.
What would you say and quite frankly, you're a seasoned entrepreneur, even though you may have a little bit less years than I do, but what would you say is some of the best things that came to you in starting you on your entrepreneurship journey? Was it a mentorship? Was it just association with a family member who might have been an entrepreneur? What do you think kind of got your mind to think that? Because entrepreneurship is a different thought than most people.
Yeah, definitely a lot of my family's in entrepreneurship. And my dad specifically has been very helpful as a mentor, and a partner. He's definitely part of the business too. So yeah, I've learned a lot from him and other members of my family. And I think I guess what got my mindset going that direction was probably just being exposed to it at a young age. And I don't know, somewhere along the line, my mind liked the idea of it and developed the desire to do it. So yeah.
Do you see that guidance into a mentorship is really important to, and has it accelerated? It sounds like it accelerated your sort of journey. Is that true?
Yeah.
Or what's your thought on that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many new areas that I've had to get into, from payroll to logistics to just dealing with these big companies, where having a mentor has been very helpful.
Do you when you think about entrepreneurship, do you see that this could be a long-term full-time venture? Is that where you're moving this into, or is it going to be what we call, quote unquote, a side hustle? It sounds like you're scaled up though, at that point where you're moving well beyond the side hustle.
I honestly have no idea. I don't know. I think there's potential for me to be involved in e-commerce for a long time. I wouldn't say that the current business model that I'm running is going to be a long-term thing, just because the e-commerce industry is just changing so rapidly. And like I said in the beginning, right now, there's a lot of hands touching the product. And I think there's a lot of room for that to be streamlined.
You mentioned private label, and I know a little bit about that. Could you describe what that might mean, and what would that look like for you from going from an arbitrage wholesale to a private label company? Yeah,
so private label is completely different from wholesale. Wholesale is very black and white, a lot of math. Private label involves a lot more creativity. So private label in the Amazon world is basically known as when you source a product from a manufacturer and you create a logo and you create your own brand, trademark that brand, and you put it on that product, and then you sell it on Amazon. And it's a very popular business model. And like 5 years ago, you could throw anything up on there. You could throw Mike's sunglasses up on there and start selling 1,000 a day. But that's no longer the case. So because it's gotten a lot more competitive, and so now it involves a lot more creativity and really just I don't know, but that's what I've been seeing. and I will know a lot more if I get into it. But that's the gist of it. You're creating your own brand where no other sellers can sell it. So you control that listing and in the price you sell it at, and there's no other competition. But on the other side, it's very daunting to build a listing to where it's on the front page of a search result for sunglasses. So sunglasses are very saturated at this point. So a lot of the private label is in more niche areas where it's not as competitive.
So I might have to scrap that idea from Mike's sunglasses.
Yeah, you might have to.
It really sounds to me, Ethan, that you're fully ingrained in the platform, and you know where you're competitive and where you're not. And I think that's a big part of being as successful as you've been. When you look forward, do you see other things that would be really helpful for you to become at the next level of entrepreneurship? Would that be more mentorship, or just bringing on more people that can actually multiply the time that they have available working on your behalf, or both?
I think first I have to graduate college. I think having more time would definitely help me. And yeah, I think just surrounding yourself with like-minded people who can help you. I think that would probably take it to the next level too.
Who would you follow as far as, like, do you follow anyone from a specific, like, Amazon FBA entrepreneurs, or just entrepreneurs in general? Who might you?
I would follow Amazon_lit. It's run by two guys, Eric Castellanos, and the other partner is Sebastian, I believe. And I don't know them personally, but I have reached out to them many times over Instagram, and they graciously respond all the time, and they've been incredibly helpful in helping me.
And that's what I've heard. I've actually reached out to a couple of national people as well, and I in the Amazon FBA space, and I have been just remarkably impressed how open they are with advice and insight, and pass me on to other people with resources. Because what we're trying to do here, obviously, Ethan, is provide really as much resource and mentorship and ecosystem that we can for people like yourself who are embarking on that journey. I'd really like to just acknowledge the work that you've done, Ethan. It's utterly amazing to start a business, and it's difficult. It's not easy. I forget really when we chat that you're still in school, and you do need to graduate college. I think that is the best advice. But the good news is that you've developed this skill and really have honed in on a template. So no matter what you do or what product or where you take it, you have that success to build on. And I just think that's incredibly impressive. And I just want to thank you for your time. Is there anything else that you would leave our viewers with, just a piece of insight or observation about either entrepreneurship or e-commerce that you'd like to leave the group with?
I just think in e-commerce, I know for myself, I'm just keeping my eyes open and just looking for whatever is changing and where the industry is heading. And yeah, thank you very much for saying that, and thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure here, Ethan. Just wonderful to talk with entrepreneurs who are really changing their industry and platform and really finding success. So I want to acknowledge that and also say thank you for joining us here at Converge and Create. And we'll put those resources that you had talked about, but others on FBA and Amazon at the end of the event. So thank you so much, Ethan. Best of luck in your pursuits. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike.